Hello everyone. Today we'll be making our black truffle soup. Okay, so this recipe is kind of a rendition on one of our favorite chefs over here at Truffle Shuffle, Guy Savoy. Right? Very famous French chef. This is a beautiful soup which really shows off the black truffle. We're gonna put some artichokes in there too. So, just like we do with all these recipes, we have our mise en place section and our ingredients section. Alright, so I'm going to go through the mise en place real quick. So, first things first, we'll need a cutting board. Okay, we got my lovely cutting board over here. And we will also need a fine mesh strainer. Alright, we got a mesh strainer. We will need a measuring cup. One measuring cup. As well as a peeler for peeling. We've got our knife over here. We've got a mixing bowl that we went ahead and filled up with cold water. Alright, as well as a 2-quart sauce pot. Right? We will also need a large pot. We got this large pot over here. We'll need a wooden spoon, as well as a paring knife, or we have this, we call a tournée knife, right? Which we're going to use for the artichoke. We'll also need a blender, which we got a little Vitamix over here. We're going to need a ladle. Okay. And last but not least, we will need a whisk. So that is all of our mise en place, right? In terms of our ingredients, I'm going to go through those nice and quick. So inside of our kit, we have some chives, a little bit of chou-fleur, right, which is cauliflower, some beautiful artichokes. We've also got Yukon Gold potato, a lovely lemon. Alright. Got some butter over here too. As well as a little bit of creme fraiche. A shallot. Right. A little bag of Balinese truffle salt. We got some button mushrooms over here too. A couple bags of bone broth. And a jar of truffle carpaccio. Alright, so that is all the mise en place. Those are all of the ingredients, right? And also, you want to have on hand, right, some of your favorite crusty bread. We got some beautiful sourdough over here that we'll be utilizing for eating this soup. What I'm going to do first is go through all of the prep, right, that we need to do, as well as how to cook the soup from start to finish. Alright, so the first item is our prep during our class. So again, we want to go ahead, fill up that large bowl with water, right? And what we need to do is get a little bit of acid into this water, right? And that helps make sure that the artichokes don't turn and oxidize, right? Because artichokes are actually an unbloomed flower, right? It's in the thistle family. They're an unbloomed flower. When they bloom, they have a beautiful, like super, super bright blue petals. But with that, because it's an unbloomed flower, they oxidize very, very quickly, okay? So the first thing that we need to do is get a little lemon juice into that bowl. So I'm going to come in here. Cut that lemon in half, okay? And just take half of that lemon and juice about half of that lemon into my mixing bowl, right? And it's okay if you got seeds in there, okay? It's going to be just fine. Beautiful. Save that other half of that lemon. We're going to need it for seasoning up this soup. And then what I'm going to show you next is our artichokes, okay? So the first thing we need to do for this soup is actually tournée our artichokes, right? Which again, like I said, an artichoke is an unbloomed flower. And with that, they have very, very thick leaves, right, on the outside of the artichoke, which we need to remove in order to tournate it beautifully. So you can see down here, look at that lovely artichoke. California has a nice artichoke. So the way that you peel the leaves off of the artichoke, right, is you actually take the leaf. I like to hold the artichoke upside down. Take the leaf and just snap it and pull down, okay? And so you want to do that to every single leaf, okay? So I'm just going to take off these small leaves at first, right? And then I'm going to come in here and take off the larger leaves. So, again, I'm going to show you. I got this leaf right here, right? And I want to actually hold my thumb at the very base of that leaf and just snap it, right? You'll hear a snap. And then pull down that leaf. You don't want to actually break off that green part, right? You just want to snap that leaf and pull it down, okay? Snap the leaf, pull it down, all right? And so you'll notice as you turn that artichoke, right? Just continue snapping those leaves and pulling them down, right? And like I said, you really want to make sure you're not just yanking the entire leaf off, right? Because if you do, you're actually going to remove some of the meat of the artichoke with that leaf, right? Let me just kind of demonstrate it for you. You see how it's just a leaf and it ends right there? If you snap too much off, you'll see a little bit of very light green at the bottom there. And if you've ever eaten artichoke leaves, you'll notice that's where the meat is, right? And so you can see I've left the meat on, the perspective meat on my artichoke, and it's not on my leaf. Which is really important when you're tornadoing artichokes, because otherwise you can get to the end of this leaf snapping process and accidentally pulled off all the artichoke heart, right? So again, snap that leaf, pull it down, right? Snap and pull, and snap and pull. Right? Beautiful. So now I got my leaves fully snapped off, right? I just want to get to this point right here where you see how the artichoke starts to curl in, right? You can start to see the definition of where it curls back in, right? And that is exactly where we're going to be cutting our artichoke in order to tornade it. So get both artichokes until they're at this stage, right? That beautiful, right, leaf snapped stage, I guess we can call it, right? And so again, I'm going to come in here and do this one just a little bit quicker. And if you remove some of that meat with that leaf, it's not the end of the world, right? But you want to leave as much meat on that artichoke as possible, right? And not remove it with your leaves, because we're not going to use these leaves for anything. They don't have the meat on them, right? So there's no real use for them. So again, snap and pull, right? Beautiful. And again, you see how we're forming. We got that the side of the artichoke is coming in, right? That's exactly what we want our artichokes to look like. Okay. So you can just discard those leaves, pop it in your compost pile, right? And so what we're going to do now is actually tornade the artichokes, right? Which honestly is a quite advanced technique. And if your artichoke doesn't come out or look completely perfect, do not worry, right? Because honestly, at the end of the day, we're going to chop them and then fold them into our soup base, right? But it's a cool technique that we wanted to show you how to do. So I'm going to show you how we tornade them right at the restaurant. So again, as you can see, where the side of the artichoke starts to curl in, I'm going to take my knife and actually press into that artichoke, right? And then I'm going to cut, moving my knife back and forth in kind of a sawing motion, right, I'm just going to cut the top part of those leaves off, all right? And you want to cut down far enough to where you start to see the choke, right? And the choke are those tiny little bristles, right? If you don't see that, that means you got to go down a little bit further, okay? So that is how I have cut right here. What I'm going to do is just take that half a lemon that I have hanging out in that mixing bowl and just squeeze a little lemon juice on there, right? Stop it from oxidizing, okay? So first step, just remove that little cone, right? Remove that little cone head. And then the way we're going to tornado the artichoke is very, very simple, right? So we're going to follow the natural shape of that artichoke, that beautiful bell shape. So our first cut is going to be at this angle. Our second cut is going to be straight up and down. And then our third cut, we're actually going to flip the artichoke over and hit it like that to kind of follow along with that natural shape. So you guys can kind of watch me as I tornado my first artichoke, right? And then follow along. So again, first cut. And I want to just cut that dark green off of that artichoke, right? So you'll notice I'm moving my knife back and forth, right? To expose that beautiful light green portion of the choke. And that's the heart of the artichoke, right? That's what we eat. So, again, just remove that, right? And now I'm going to flip my artichoke over. And my next cut is going to be straight up and down, right? So, again, I'm in here with my little tournay knife or my paring knife, right? Just move your knife back and forth, right? In kind of a slight sawing motion. And just keep cutting through that artichokes. You see that? See how it's kind of edged up? So we got that first angle on that choke. And then we kind of edged it up, right? So what I'm going to do next is actually cut that last piece of that artichoke on an angle, right? Just to follow the natural shape of that artichoke. All right, see that? That's how you remove all of that really kind of woody green part from it, which is not edible, right? So I'm just going to rub down my artichoke heart with a little lemon juice, okay? And what we're going to do next is actually peel up the stem of that artichoke, okay? So first things first, I'm just going to remove the bottom part of that artichoke. If your stem is super woody, you might want to go down to a part where it's not so woody. Mine's good there. And then what I'm going to do is come in here and using my knife, just barely take off the green part, right, of that artichoke. So I'm just going to show you. I'm going to come in here, right, come down, take that off, and then run my knife up that stem, okay? So I'm going to show you one more time. So come in here, right, remove that dark green, and just run your knife up that stem. And after you've made a couple cuts, right, it kind of allows you, for the rest of them, for it to happen super easily, right? So again, I'm just coming in here and I'm just kind of scooping that green part, that dark green part off of the artichoke, right? See that? So there we have it. Our beautiful, clean artichoke, okay? And so what I'm going to do at this point, right, is just pop this artichoke into my bowl, right, of acidulated water. And again, that stops the artichoke from oxidizing, okay? Which, again, even if it oxidizes a little bit, it's not the end of the world or anything, right? You're going to be just fine. But if you cut artichokes and just leave them out, right, and you don't add any acid to them, they do turn like really kind of dark brown, and that can affect the flavor a little bit. So that is my one artichoke that I did real quick. Again, the rest of that you can't really eat, right? It's kind of inedible and very, very fibrous, Okay, so we're just gonna pop that in our compost pile over here. Nice. There you go. So that was the first artichoke, and now the next artichoke I'll go through with you guys a little bit quicker, right? So again, take that knife, place it just above where the artichoke starts to curve in, right? Just above that, and then just moving your knife back and forth, right? Just cut the kind of cone part off of that artichoke. And again, you want to see the choke itself, right? You want to see some little thistles in there, some bristles or whatever you call them, right? A little bit of lemon, right? And then again, 1, 2, 3, right? That's how you make sure that shape is properly maintained. So the first one, come around the top, right? Beautiful. Flip it over. Just make my nice cut on the side, nice and vertically. And again, you'll see I'm moving my knife back and forth, right? A little lemon. Next cut, coming in on that angle. Beautiful. Now we got our beautiful bell shape, okay? So then again, come in here and just snip it off where the stem isn't so woody, right? Depending on your artichoke, sometimes it can be a little woodier. And then again, I'm just removing that kind of dark green part from that artichoke, okay? Right? All the way up the stem. There you go. So I got my lovely little tornado artichoke, right? Over here. So again, you don't need to save any of that stuff. It's pretty fibrous, right? Just gonna pop it in our little compost pile over here. Nice. And so the next step that I'm going to do is actually remove the choke from the artichoke, right? So you're going to need a nice small spoon, okay? Your tournay knife and your artichoke, okay? And so I'm going to show you how to do I'm going to show you how to do these two over here, okay? So what I want to do is you'll notice that choke is lying right in the center of that artichoke heart, right? And again, it really, really helps to think of an artichoke as a flower, okay? Right? So just like the way a flower is shaped, in the center of the flower you have the, we call them pistils, right? That come out. And then you have the actual petals themselves. So the petals themselves we snapped off, right? And then the pistils that are in the middle, in an artichoke, those are inedible, right? And that's why they call it a choke, because you would choke on them, right? And so what we need to do is remove them, okay? So in order to do that, I'm going to take my knife, right? And just with the tip of my knife kind of angled down, right? So I got a little downwards angle on it. I'm just cutting the top of my artichoke to expose that full choke, and you'll see it as I take this off. Boom. Right? You see that? So you see that is the full choke right there. See all edges of it. And at this point, you'll be below those little purple leaves, okay? You want to get below those purple leaves, right? So, once you've exposed that full choke, it's pretty simple what we're doing here. I'm just going to take a spoon and just kind of wiggle my spoon in, right? And scoop out that choke, all right? So again, take that spoon, and I'm using my non-spoon hand to kind of support, right, my artichoke. That way I got in that nice grip. And it helps to have that little bowl of water next to you because you kind of dip your spoon in there and clean your spoon off. So I'm just going to come in here and scoop out the choke, right? Again, just with the tip of your knife. And the best way to do it, when you think about it, is you don't want to come in and scoop out the entire choke at once. You want to do it in sections, right? Otherwise, you can very often kind of break your artichoke up a little bit, right? So, once you've gotten the majority of that choke removed, then you come in here and using your spoon, you kind of scrape all the edges of the inside of that artichoke, right? And just remove all that choke, okay? And as you can see, I'm kind of using my thumb to leverage up against the side of that artichoke, right? And just get as much of that choke out as possible. Stunning. There you have it. So as you can see, forming that beautiful artichoke, right? And there you have it. I'm going to come in here and just squeeze a little lemon juice in there, right? Because the inside of that choke will oxidize faster than any other part of the artichoke. Okay? So there you have it. You see that? And again, you'll see a little bit of brown on there. That's always going to happen. But you don't want the entire artichoke to turn crazy brown. So again, just come in here, add a little lemon juice, and pop that artichoke into your mixing bowl with the water in it. Okay? Nice. So, now that we've done one, I'll kind of show you the second one more time. Right? So again, I'm going to take my artichoke, right? With my knife, just kind of angled a little bit. Just coming right along the edge. And all we're doing is drawing a line, right? Just defining the edge of that artichoke, all right, and exposing the whole choke, okay? Coming here with my knife, supporting that artichoke with my other hand, right? And I'm just gonna come in and just scoop small sections at a time, right? With the tip of your spoon. And again, just kind of dip your spoon in that water from time to time, clean it off a little bit, right? And again, you can see, how kind of fuzzy it is, right? Again, it's completely inedible, that choke. So, supporting my artichoke with one hand, with the other hand using my spoon, right? Remove that choke. And then once that choke is removed, for the most part, I'm just going to come around the edge of the inside. Just get off as much of that artichoke as possible. Okay. Just going to rinse it off real quick. Look at that. You see that? Super clean. No choke anywhere. Okay? Right? No choke anywhere. Super clean. I got that beautiful bell shape is what you're looking for, right? There you have it. It's our lovely artichoke. It's crazy how much you have to remove on an artichoke, right? In order to get that really nice heart of the artichoke, right? So if any of you have had artichokes before, you know there's the heart of the artichoke. And that's really only the edible part of the flower itself, and that's this right here. This is the only edible part of the entire artichoke. And you'll notice, you see those little kind of that little pattern right there? That is where the leaf meets the choke. And so if you've ever eaten artichoke leaves before, right? I can go down low and show you a little bit better. You see that pattern, right? Right in that pattern is where that leaf would touch the artichoke, right? And if you ever eaten artichoke leaves before, that's where you're eating, right? Just to kind of demonstrate it, right? You see how the leaf would attach right there, right? Boom. There you go. Nice. So at this point, I'm just going to adios all of that stuff from my chokes, okay? And just keep those artichokes hanging out in that bowl with that cold acidulated water with that lemon in it, right? Again, you can kind of sprinkle a little lemon into the center of those artichokes. But they're going to hang out in that bowl with that lemon and be just fine. Okay? So, as you can see over here, I've got my bowl, right? It's okay if there's a little bit of stuff in there with these artichokes, right? They'll be just fine. But you can see, I just got them hanging out in that acidulated water, ready to go. So, hold those artichokes off to the side, right? Beautiful. And now we will get to step 4 in our recipe, right? Which is the cauliflower. Okay? So, we come over here, grab that beautiful head of cauliflower that we sent all of you, right? And we sent you guys more cauliflower than you need, okay? But honestly, we didn't want to like pre-cut this cauliflower for you. So, this is going to be delicious if you want to, whatever extra you have, if you want to chop it up, roast it, add a little garnish on top of the soup, that would be a great idea, right? So, what I'm going to do over here is dice up 2 heaping cups of cauliflower, okay? And so the way I like to prep cauliflower, and this is kind of cool, even if you've had cauliflower before, is the way it grows is you got your stem right here, and then the big leaves of the cauliflower grow over it, and then you got that lovely little head right here, right? So the way I like to do it is come in here, and just be careful as you do this, but I like to take my knife and just kind of go around, just around where that stem is. Be very careful as you do this. And you don't cut all the way through, right? My goal is to kind of trim these tough little outer leaves, right, away from the artichoke. Or sorry, away from the cauliflower. Okay? And then just peel them back, right? And that's kind of how I've found works absolutely best, just to get these guys out of there. And then you're just working with nice, clean product, okay? So, again, just pop those guys into your little compost bin you got going. Okay? And then what I like to do is come in here and just cut this guy directly in half across that stem. Stunning. And so, as you can see, the way a cauliflower grows is you got your main stem, and then you got your little florets coming off of the stem, okay? And so when we dice this cauliflower, we want to have as little stem as possible. We want to achieve as much floret as we can, right, in our 2 cups. So the way I like to do that is honestly just kind of lean my cauliflower and just sort of cut along those florets and just kind of remove them, right, from that stem. And that way we're dealing with as little stem as possible, okay? And you're kind of just dealing with those beautiful florets of cauliflower, which is where where a lot of the nice flavor resides. There's a lot of flavor in the stem too, but for the soup, I really want those florets, okay? So again, just kind of ride the edge of those stems, right? You'll see. You just wind up with a nice little cauliflower stem, which you can dice that up, roast it, right? Or just pan sear it just on that side. It is the bomb. Okay? So, I've got my cauliflower over here, right? And what I want to do is dice my cauliflower into about 1-inch pieces, right, before I measure it out. Because otherwise, you'll have if you just measure out 2 cups of gigantic pieces of cauliflower, it's not really 2 cups. So, again, just come in here, give that choux-fleur a little dice, right? Nice. And again, I know it's kind of like a very tiny little detail to use the florets versus the stems, right? But again, it's all those tiny little details that add up to create that beautiful finished dish, right? So And then it's just, as a chef, you got to know ways to use those other pieces. So, as you can see, I got my choux-fleur diced up over here, right? So, I'm just going to take my cup measure. And again, you want two, like, nice cups. Two generous cups. So, if it's kind of heaping over a little bit, that is just fine. Right? So, I got cup number 1. Excellent. And then I got cup number 2. And this is the perfect amount right here. Right? Excellent. Let's go ahead, pop those 2 cups of cauliflower into your little bowl, right? Or whatever you're using off to the side. Okay? Nice. And then I'm just going to clean it up. Place my cauliflower off to the side. Again, you can kind of dice it up, roast it, right? Our cauliflower is delicious like that. Diced and roasted. For all the extra cauliflower. My next step is to peel and dice my shallot. Right? So, whenever you're cutting items for soup, or anything that needs to be pureed, right? You always want the vegetables to be similar sizes, okay? And so for this soup, I'm going to dice everything about 1 inch. And I know, again, it sounds like a tiny little detail, but let me kind of put it into perspective for you. So we're going to cook all these vegetables. We're going to simmer them in our sauce, and we're going to blend them, right? If they're not cut the same size, they're going to cook at very different rates. And so just to give a very extreme example, right? If I put a tiny piece of cauliflower in the pot and a whole potato in the pot, right? They will not at all cook the same way. And so whenever you're thinking of something that you're cooking, you always got to think, if you're adding the item at the same time as each other, they always got to be kind of similar size. That being said, it doesn't need to be perfect, right? But because my cauliflower is all about 1 inch pieces, right? Everything else that I put in this mix is going to be a similar size, okay? So, with that being said, I'm going to come in here, just take the top and the bottom off my shallot, right? And split that shallot directly in half, okay? And just peel the kind of papery layer off of that shallot. And sometimes those first 2 layers of a shallot can be pretty papery, right? So come in here, just peel that papery layer off of that shallot, right? Beautiful. And then what I'm going to do is come in here and just dice this shallot, right? About the same size as my cauliflower, okay? Again, I know it's not perfect, but it's very similar. Okay, and so every other piece of vegetable that's going to go in here is going to be cut a similar size, right? Excellent. So at this point, as you can see, right, I've got my lovely cauliflower, okay, and my shallots, right? Not too much shallot, just a little bit to kind of give it that really nice nuance flavor. The next thing that we need to do is actually wash off our button mushrooms real quick. Okay? So, whether you're using a bowl of water or using a sink, right? Feel free to do this in the sink. I've actually got some warm water in this bowl. And whenever you're washing mushrooms, it always helps to wash them in warm water, just because it helps the dirt come off of the mushroom a little bit easier. So, as you can see, I'm going to come in here, remove that dirt, right, from that mushroom. Okay, just place it off to the side. So again, I like to come in here with my fingers, kind of massage that dirt off of that mushroom. Okay, nice. And again, these are nice button mushrooms that we sent over to you, and the mushrooms really help add that depth of flavor to the soup along with the truffle, right? once we got those mushrooms over here, we're going to just dice these guys exactly the same way like we've been cutting everything else. So I'm going to leave the stem on all of my mushrooms, right? No need to remove that stem and throw it away for no reason. So, again, I'm just going to kind of dice my mushrooms about the same size as my shallots and my cauliflower and all of the other vegetables that we're going to put into this soup. All right? Nice. Beautiful. Excellent. So, now I've got all of my mushrooms diced, right? I'll place those into my soup mise en place bowl as well. Okay? So, again, at this point, I've got my cauliflower diced, right? I've got my mushrooms diced and my shallots are diced. Okay? So the next thing that we're going to cut up is our potato. Okay? So, the way I'm going to do this is first I'm going to peel this potato. Okay? So the way I like to peel potatoes is I always like to trim the top. Right, just a little bit. Trim a little bit of the top, a little bit of the bottom. And that gives me a starting and ending point to my peel, right? So I like to then take my peeler, peel end to end, okay? And that's how you can do it super fast, right? And as smooth as possible. All right? So, again, come in here, just peel that potato down until it's nice and clean. And the potato adds thickening power to this soup, okay? So I'm just going to get rid of those peels, all right? And I'm going to dice up this Yukon potato just like I diced up everything else, okay? Starting to see the pattern here. Same size. And we're going to cut 1 heaping cup of potato. All right. So what I like to do is come in here and cut one side off that potato. Right. And that's going to act as the side that I stand my potato on. Right. You always want to cut potatoes, especially. They roll super easily when you cut them. So if you don't have that stable base, you can accidentally cut yourself pretty easily. So I'm going to come in here and just cut. Right. Knife kind of 1/2 inch pieces, or blocks rather, and then turn my knife and just dice this potato up, right, exactly the same size as all my other vegetables. Place it into my little cup over here, right? So again, we're looking for like 1 heaping cup of potatoes over here, right? Amazing. Just gonna dice this guy up. And any extra potato that you have, right, you can chop them up, make little home fries out of them, something like that. If you keep Yukon Gold potatoes in water, they won't oxidize. So you see I've got my potato cut, right, a heaping cup of that potato. Again, make sure you save whatever potato you have left for another purpose. Then add that heaping cup of potato into your mise en place, right? So look at that. Cauliflower, potato, shallot, mushrooms, everything's kind of diced, similar size, right? Exactly. So at this point, what I want to do as well is dice up my artichoke, okay? So I know we took all that time tornading that artichoke into those beautiful bell shapes, right? And at the end of the day, we're going to dice them. So I know you might be saying, Tyler, why are you so crazy about tornading that artichoke if we're just going to dice it, right? And the reason is yield, okay? Because if you don't take the time to tornade the artichoke properly before you dice it, you will very often get a much lower yield, okay, than you're looking for. So, again, this artichoke is going to give that beautiful flavor to our dish. So, it's very important we get enough of it. So, what I like to do first is just come in here and just trim off that stem, right? Just remove that stem. And then I'm just going to dice up this artichoke. Again, same exact size as everything else. All right. And by the end of this class, you will totally hear me in the back of your head every time you're making blended soup in the future that everything has to be the same size, right? So, again, come in here, dice up that stem to about same size. If it's super, super woody, if you're having a really hard time, like I'm here, pushing through it with your knife, honestly, it's best to not even use that. Because when it blends up, it's going to be super, it's not really going to blend smooth. It's going to stay really, really kind of fibrous. So you can pop that in compost if it's giving you a little bit of a hard time, right? Just add those artichokes to our mix, okay? So look at that. We got that beautiful mix of vegetables over here. All right. Absolutely stunning. Nice. So again, cauliflower, right? We've got our Yukon Gold potatoes, okay? Our mushrooms, shallots, and artichokes, right? And so that is the base of our soup, okay? And then obviously we're going to add some truffle to it. We're going to cook it in a nice, beautiful chicken broth, right? Add a little bit of water to it as well to give it some room to cook and braise, right? But that is the base of our soup. And so anytime you're making soup, it's important that the base is extremely flavorful because you can always thin soup out, right? You can always make it a little thinner or a little less flavorful. It's very difficult to make soup more flavorful. So you always want to start with a super, super strong base of flavor and then go from there. Amazing. So the next thing that we want to do before we get this soup cooking, right, and going all out while we're still prepping everything is we're actually going to slice our chives, okay? So you want to remove those chives from that paper towel, right, or that clamshell, and just fold a piece of paper towel, right, into a long rectangle, okay? And actually secure the tops of those chives by rolling them up in that piece of paper towel, okay? And again, this is a small step, but it really helps you be able to cut those chives nice and thin, right? Because they're secured by that piece of paper towel. So I'm going to come in here, right? I'm just going to slice off just the very end of those chives, okay? And then I'm going to come in here and just slice those chives as thin as you possibly can, okay? So I like to use like a full-on slicing motion, right? With those chives. Nice. And we're going to slice about 2 tablespoons, okay? Again, this is just for garnish, right? Just for a little garnish on top of that soup. A little pop of color, okay? Nice. Beautiful. So again, just come through here, slice all those chives up. All right, any chives you have left, save them for scrambled eggs tomorrow. Okay. And then we're just going to pop these chives onto a small plate or a little bowl or something like that and keep them off to the side. Beautiful. Amazing. So, now that we got our chives sliced, right? We've got all of our beautiful vegetables diced up. Okay, we're going to start cooking this soup and go to step 1 in our how to cook section of the recipe. All right, so now we're in step 1 of our how to cook, right? And what you want to do is take all of that butter that we sent to you, right? You want to take all of it and just get it into that large pot, okay? So we're just heating up this butter in our pot over about medium heat, okay? And what we're going to do over here is just stew these vegetables down until they're nice and soft, all right? So you just want to let that butter melt all the way down. Nice. And I know it looks like a good amount of butter, but it's important to add enough, okay? You gotta make sure those vegetables have enough butter. It allows that sauce to be nice and silky smooth at the very end of the process. So, stir that butter as it's cooking. Alright. So, once our butter's all melted down, right? Once that butter is nice and melted down, we're going to add all of our vegetables into the pot, okay? So, that potato, the cauliflower, right? Those mushrooms, those artichokes, the shallots. Look at that. Beautiful. So, once you get all those vegetables in there, right? You want to stir them up and let that butter coat all of them, okay? And what we're doing here is stewing, okay? We're stewing the vegetables, right? And we're intentionally adding a lot of vegetables to relative to the size of our pot because we don't want to get color on the vegetables, all right? We don't want them to caramelize. We want them to get color, right? We want them to stew, right? And just get nice and soft and kind of cook some of that excess water out of them, okay? So, I'm going to come in here, stir those vegetables up in that pot. And in order to assist with this process, right, we're actually going to add a pinch of Balinese truffle salt into our pot, right? Just get a nice pinch in there. Okay, make sure you're seasoning nice and up high. Okay. That truffle salt. And again, just stir that salt into our pot. So we're not adding all of that salt, just a pinch, okay? And just cook these vegetables over this kind of medium heat until they get nice and soft, okay? And this is going to take about 5 minutes or so, okay? And so you're just going to keep stirring up those vegetables. Just keep stirring them up. All right? And cook them until they get nice and soft. All right? And the reason why you want the vegetables to be soft, right, is because what we're doing is we're cooking the water out of the vegetables, right? So anytime that you're cooking, when you remove water, you increase flavor, okay? If we just threw all those vegetables in there and then we threw the stock in there and then boiled it away, like, you wouldn't be removing enough water from the vegetables themselves, okay? So you need to put some heat on them. You need to remove some of their water, right? So that way they're already kind of soft and the flavor is concentrated before we even add the broth on top, okay? So, again, just make sure you're stirring those vegetables up. You don't really want to get any color on them. If you get a little bit of color, that's fine, but we're not going for like really strong caramelization over here. All right. So, again, just stir those vegetables up, right? They're going to take about 5 minutes to soften up like that. So as you can see, we've cooked those vegetables, and you see how they've softened up, right? They've softened up. The volume of the vegetables itself has decreased a lot. And again, that's because the water has been cooked off of the vegetables, right? So the water's been cooked off, and therefore the flavor has been concentrated, okay? So as you can see, they're kind of softened up a little bit, right? And what we got to do now at this point is we're going to add all of our bone broth, okay? So go ahead, add all of that bone broth to the pot, right? And if your broth is still a little frozen, that is just fine. We actually ship it frozen, that way it stays nice and cold. So, add that bone broth, right? As well as 2 cups of water. And then turn the heat up to high, and we're going to bring this soup all the way to a boil, right? And then once that soup is boiling, we're going to turn it down to a simmer, okay? So at this point, my soup has come to a boil. I've turned it down to a simmer, right? And we just want to simmer this guy for 30 minutes, right? And just let those flavors kind of meld together. Let those vegetables get super, super soft, okay? And at this point, what we want to do is actually add some of our truffle carpaccio to the soup to get that nice truffly flavor going on. So you want to bust that lid off of that carpaccio. Listen for the snap. Ooh. Nice. Give it a little smell. Ooh, delicious. Okay? And so just drain the olive oil off of that carpaccio, okay? So we're gonna save this olive oil, right? Do not get rid of it. And even if you have any left over after making this recipe, make sure you hold on to it. That way you can add some to future recipes, okay? But just drain that truffle oil. And what we're going to do is we're going to add half of this truffle carpaccio to this soup, all right? Just come over the top. You don't got to be exact with it, just about half. We're going to add to our soup over here, right? And the other half we're just going to save as garnish, all right? On top of this soup. Beautiful. So that brings us to step 6, right? Which is we're just going to let this soup simmer for the next 30 minutes, okay? Let those flavors really meld. Let that those vegetables get nice and soft, right? And after that, we will blend. So now the soup has simmered for 30 minutes, right? As you can see over here, it's kind of reduced down a little bit. All those vegetables are nice and soft, right? Smells absolutely delicious, right? So, at this point, what we need to do is blend the soup. What you want to do is grab your blender, okay? If you have a blender, if you have like a food processor, you can do this with that as well, okay? But we're going to grab a blender in order to blend our soup, okay? And just to kind of preface this, right? This is a very important piece. We will be blending this soup hot, okay? So be very, very, very careful when you turn on that blender. You don't want to turn it on at high speed, okay? We got to ramp up, okay? In order to get it where it needs to go. Because otherwise, if you blend it and it's hot, you might get hot soup all over the place. So, what I want to do is turn my soup off. All right. And then using my ladle, I'm just going to transfer some of this soup into my blender, okay? Nice. So, whatever blender you're using, right? Whether it's a taller blender like this or a shorter blender, you never want to add more than half of the blender worth of soup at a time, right? So you just want to fill that blender halfway. And if that means that you need to blend this in like 4 steps as opposed to 2 or whatever it is, take your time, right? But this step, it is very important that you don't add too much soup to the blender, because again, if you blend it while it's hot, it can get all over the place. It gets crazy. So I've got my soup in my blender, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of our creme fraiche right into my blender, okay? So I got about half of my soup in there right now. So I'm going to add about 1/4 of my creme fraiche into this blender, right? And that's going to give us that super nice, silky smooth texture, okay? So, again, we're going to come over here to our blender, right? Make sure the lid is on securely, all right? And then once you have that lid on, take another precautionary step and just place your towel over your blender, okay? So, what you want to do is start blending at the lowest speed possible and then work your way up, okay? So I'm just going to turn mine on right now, right? So my blender is just going, okay? And I'm going to slowly turn that blender up, okay? Very, very slowly, okay? Very slowly, okay? Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going until you're going as high as possible, okay? So we want our soup to blend on high speed, honestly, for like 1 to 2 minutes. And what that does is allows the soup to get super, super smooth, okay? Get that silky, smooth texture. And to show off this silky smoothness, I'm going to my up-top camera, right? Look at that. You see that? It's got that beautiful, silky, smooth texture. All right? Look at that. Stunning. All right? So, now that I got my soup blended up, right? What I want to do is strain my soup into my 2-quart pot, okay? I don't have the heat on over here, but straining the soup like this is what allows us to get that super smooth finished texture, right? Look at that. Mmm. You see that potatoes kind of thickened up that soup a little bit? Right? You get that nice artichoke and cauliflower flavor in there too. It's absolutely luxurious, right? And delicious. Okay? So, what you can do is you can kind of tap on the edge of that strainer. Right? Just kind of tap on it. And that also really just helps you get that really nice silky smoothness. If you ever wonder how when you go to a restaurant you get the soup and it's really, really nice and smooth, that's how you do it, is literally you just blend it super, super strong, right? And then strain it and you get that super nice, right, silky texture. And so now you just repeat with the second half of that soup, right, or however many batches you were going to do, right? I'm going to leave myself with half of this creme fraiche to add at the very end, okay? But however many times you need to blend this, in order to make sure your blender isn't more than halfway full at any time. Nice. And so again, when you blend this other half, like I said before, just take that kitchen towel and pop it on top of the blender just to make sure we are using all safety precautions necessary. So again, start low, right? And just very slowly turn that blender up until it's going nice and high. Velvete. So, at this point, right, we blended that soup. It's got that beautiful velvetyness, right, as you can see. But what we got to do is adjust the flavor, right? We got to adjust the seasoning because that's the difference. That's the difference between good and great, right? This soup right now is good, okay? It tastes delicious. It's got all the elements of a well-made soup, but seasoning is what makes something truly excellent. So you wanna, the only way to know how to season properly is to taste. So you gotta come in here, give it a taste. So good. But we need to kind of elevate the flavors a little bit. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of truffle oil, right, to this soup. Maybe 2 teaspoons, right? And that's just going to add that truffly flavor, right? I need a little bit more salt in there. So I'm going to add some Balinese truffle salt, right? Oof. And then I'm also going to add some lemon juice to this to kind of lift up the flavor, right? Because acid lifts up flavors, right? Because we got that creme fraiche in there, that chicken broth, right? It's all very, very, very luxurious, right? So we need to lift up the flavor with a little bit of lemon juice. So I'm going to add a nice squeeze of lemon, right? You can always add more. It's difficult to take away. So start with a little bit, whisk it in, taste it, and then adjust. So you'll see my soup will emulsify that truffle oil right into it. You can immediately smell that aroma, right? And again, that lemon is just going to lift up that flavor, right? So I'm coming here, give it another taste. Tasting really good, but I still need more salt. I get that truffle flavor, right? But I need more salt, a little bit more lemon juice, okay? And again, the only way to know if something is seasoned properly is taste, 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 taste. That's it. Give it another taste. Mine is right there, but personally, I just like a little more acid in my soup and a little more salt. So, again, the seasoning aspect is always pretty personalized, right? It's dependent on how you like your soup, right? But just think about it like that. Like, those are the levers that you pull for flavor. Salt literally makes things taste better, right? And acid lifts up the flavor, right? So, at this point, this is going to be spot on here. I know it. So good. I always like to add acid until I get a hint of brightness and then stop when it's something like this, right? So, look at that. Look at that beautiful, luxurious soup, right? I'm just going to heat this guy back up. That way it's nice and hot when we serve this soup in our bowls. All right, so now it's time to plate up that beautiful velvety soup. And just look at that soup. Look at that beautiful velvetiness in that soup. Tastes delicious. Okay? So, I'm going to come over here and plate it up. First, we're going to come in here with our soup. Get the nicest bowls that you have in your entire house. Okay? This is a very luxurious dish that we're plating over here. Black truffle and artichoke soup. Right. So, just come in here, ladle that soup in, all right? Beautiful. Okay, and then you just want to come in here and add a little dollop of that creme fraiche, right? Right to the side of that bowl. All right, so I'm just going to come in here. A little dollop right there. All right. A little dollop right there. Excellent. We're going to sprinkle just a little bit of chives on top of that guy, right? Ooh. Beautiful. As well as, it wouldn't be black truffle soup without some slices of truffle on top. Okay? So that's where the rest of this truffle carpaccio comes into play. And you kind of play however you want, but sometimes a soup, it's fun just to plate on one side of the bowl and then you leave that other side kind of open, right? Look at that. Stunning. Beautiful. So, we got some slices of our carpaccio. And then we're going to finish as well with a little sprinkle of that Bolognese truffle salt right over the top as the finishing move. Okay? And then you cannot forget your crusty bread. So you want to make sure to serve that soup with your favorite nice crusty bread, right? And there you have it. Our beautiful black winter truffle soup, a little bit of creme fraiche, chives, and make sure you got your favorite crusty bread on hand to enjoy it. Well, I hope you guys enjoy that soup, right? Make sure to eat it while it's nice and hot. Okay, hope you enjoyed tourneing those artichokes, making that beautiful, silky, smooth, velvety soup, right? And most of all, I hope you enjoy the flavor. So, hope to cook with you again sometime and have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the soup.